what is nice rice? What's the solution? What's the problem and what's the solution?
Sure, yeah. So Nice Rice we're a rice brand and launched in the UK 18 months ago to bring rice that's big on flavor, but crucially small on climate footprint. And the reason that's important, the reason I gave up my job and launched myself into Nice Rice to do this is after beef, rice is responsible for the highest emissions of any food globally. So beef ranks first for CO2 equivalent emissions, rice ranks second.
And is
And
that just because of the amount of rice eaten in the world?
no, it's not, because actually wheat is actually a more kind of widely grown crop than rice, and wheat's got half of the emissions footprint of rice. So it's not just because of the scale of the crop,
Okay.
because it is on a huge scale. But that's not just it. It's part of it. But the main thing is the way it's grown, the way it's farmed. So kind of conventional rice is grown in flooded paddy fields. We now know that those flooded fields are the perfect environment for methane, which is a really powerful greenhouse gas. Our farmers are doing things differently. They let their fields dry out during the growing season, as a whole load of other things. But the main thing is that they let the fields dry out during the growing season, and that prevents methane from being produced. And it doesn't kind of the really cool bit, I think, is that it's also higher yielding. So our farmers are actually growing more rice from their 2-acre farm, which is helping improve their
That's
livelihoods.
incredible. How does that
Yeah.
work? I mean, just because I could go into this, we could talk about this for hours, but like if they have if they stop the growing period, how do they end up with a higher yield over the course of a year?
So what they're doing is they're drying the field out. So the plant is still growing, but it's just
Like,
in a kind of dry field rather than a kind of flooded field. So it doesn't affect the growth of the plant. And actually, because the plant is then the roots are having to work down into the soil to find water, the plants are then growing bigger, stronger,
ah,
healthier. So actually, each individual plant is growing literally more rice. So when I said, there's a bit more to it, I guess this is where we can get into a bit more detail. So it's not just the drying the fields out. They also, and this might really blow your mind, but they also actually plant fewer seeds in the ground. So what farmers now know is that actually, if you give each individual rice plant a bit more space in the field, so it has better access to sunlight, better access to nutrients in the soil, each individual plant will grow bigger and stronger and actually produce more rice. So our farmers are putting, as much as 50% less seed in the ground. So they're planting 50% less crop, but they're still achieving, on average for our farms, it's about 10% improvement in their yield. So
is
it's
their
an amazing
overall
solution.
is their overall profitability then as a smallholder
Yeah,
greater?
yeah, it is. Yeah.
So why, and we're really going into this now, we may just keep this for like the long form YouTube video, but so why didn't someone invent this a zillion years ago in India or China?
So it was discovered as a system of growing rice, discovered in Madagascar in I think it was the 70s. So ages ago, 50 years ago.
But not
Um,
2000, not 5000 years ago. I mean,
no,
surely I would have thought that like human beings would have tried this before. Did they just accepted wisdom was you have to flood the paddy fields?
yeah, and the reason fields are flooded is to prevent weeds from growing,
Ah,
and it's super effective for that. So
so how do
it's
you prevent weeds from growing then?
so the fields are still flooded at kind of at intervals throughout the growing season, so that still prevents weeds. And then when they're dried out, the farmers do have to do a little bit more kind of manual work. That's probably the single significant kind of drawback for the farmers. But
Okay.
it's not an issue. It's one that they're happy to deal with.
So you're working with farmers who use this type of agriculture. You've got more farmers joining, I assume.
Yeah,